"I don't have a papa. Can you be my daddy forever?" the little girl pleaded with the lonely CEO at the church. Outside, snow fell in slow, heavy flakes, blanketing the narrow road ahead in a soft white glow. Daniel Lell gripped the steering wheel tighter as the windshield wipers brushed away memories gathering like frost. He had not meant to stop in this town, he only planned to pass through. Yet his heart had pulled him off the interstate down winding country lanes until he found himself driving past a sign that read, "Welcome to Haven Ridge, a place his wife once loved." The clock on the dashboard blinked 7:52 p.m. Warm light spilled from the stained glass windows of an old stone church just ahead. He would have driven on had it not been for a sound faint yet unmistakable children singing. Daniel slowed the car and rolled down the window. The melody, soft and imperfect but full of joy, cut through the cold like a thread of warmth, and something in him shifted. He parked, stepped out, and walked through the snow-covered courtyard, his shoes leaving crisp prints on the stone path. The wooden door creaked as he opened it, slipping quietly into the back pew. Inside, the church was lit with strings of soft yellow lights looping above rows of folding chairs and a makeshift stage near the altar. Dozens of children stood in scattered rows, rehearsing a song that stumbled more than soared, but their faces were alight with excitement. In front of them all stood a young woman with golden hair tied loosely at her nape, her voice carrying through the spacelight, warm and encouraging. "Let's try it again, my stars, from the second verse," she said gently, "and remember, sing like you are lighting up the sky." The children giggled, then straightened. She raised her hand and the piano began. Daniel's breath caught as the chords floated upward. He had not heard this carol in years. "O Holy Night." The last time his wife had sung it in their living room, their daughter twirling in pajamas by the fire. He shut his eyes. On stage, a little girl in a red dress was singing her heart out, her hair bouncing with every note, her voice one of the clearest among them. She suddenly paused, her gaze having wandered to the back of the room to him. In an instant, she climbed off the riser and began walking, then running down the center aisle, her tiny boots padding softly on the stone floor. Daniel blinked in confusion as she ran toward him. Before he could react, the girl flung her arms around his waist, pressing her cheek to his coat. He froze. She looked up at him with eyes so wide, so certain, so painfully familiar. "I do not have a papa," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Can you be my daddy forever?" The church fell silent. Daniel stared down at her, his heart thundering in his chest, and something inside him cracked open. For a moment he could not breathe. Footsteps echoed quickly behind him. "I am so sorry." The woman. Anna reached them, breathless and red-cheeked. She crouched beside the girl, gently pulling her back. "Maggie, honey, that is not... he is not..." She turned to Daniel, her eyes filled with embarrassment. "I am really sorry. She dreams a lot. Makes up stories." Daniel shook his head slowly, still unable to speak. Maggie looked up at her mother. "But Mommy, I dreamed about him last night. I saw him in the snow. He smiled at me." Anna swallowed hard. "Dreams are tricky, baby. Come on now." She looked back at Daniel, offering a quiet apology again. He nodded finally, finding his voice, though it sounded rough. No harm done. But as Anna guided her daughter away, Daniel sat back down, pressing his hands together tightly. He had come here by accident, or so he thought. Now he was not sure. That little girl's words had torn something open. And somewhere inside that wound was a whisper he had not heard in years. Hope. Anna tightened her scarf around Maggie's shoulders as they walked home under the glow of old street lamps. Snowflakes landed gently in her daughter's golden curls, but Maggie's steps dragged. "Why did he not say yes, Mommy?" the little girl asked, her voice small. Anna looked down, her heart twisting. "Sweetheart, he is just a stranger. He did not know what to say." "But he looked like he wanted to," Maggie mumbled. His eyes were sad and he paused in the snow. The quiet truth of her daughter's words clung to the night like breath on cold air. Back in the church, Daniel sat alone in the back pew. He had not meant to stay, but his legs refused to move. That little girl Maggie had stirred something he thought long buried. Lily. his daughter's name burned in his chest. 2 years ago, she and his wife Maria were in the car on the way to see Santa at the plaza. He had been stuck in a meeting, one of many he never realized would matter less than just being there. The crash was quick, the silence after endless. He had not stepped foot in a church since the funeral until tonight, and this church he suddenly remembered was the same one Maria once sang in for Christmas services when they were first dating. A picture of her standing at this very altar, eyes bright, flashed in his mind. It had brought him here without him realizing it. Fate. Coincidence. He did not know. He just knew that a little girl with 2 big eyes and a voice that cracked his heart had just hugged him like he belonged to her, and part of him wanted to. The next morning, Anna stepped onto the church grounds early, her arms full of music sheets. The wind was brisk, and she was trying to balance everything while unlocking the side door. "Excuse me?" a voice called behind her. She turned, startled. Daniel stood there, snow on his shoulders, a gray scarf in his hand. "Maggie dropped this last night." Anna blinked, then smiled with surprise. "You came back?" He nodded. She seemed like she might miss it. Anna took the scarf. She did. "Thank you." For a moment, there was quiet. Then Daniel said, "I did not mean to startle her or you." "She startles everyone." Anna chuckled. "But she's got a good heart, too much of it some days." Daniel glanced around the courtyard. "You run the choir?" Anna nodded. "Every year. It is something I can still give, I guess. To the town, to the kids, to Christmas, to myself," she said, not meeting his eyes. A giggle echoed from inside. Moments later, Maggie burst through the side door, pink boots, squeaking, her eyes lighting up the moment she saw him. "You came back." Anna tried to speak, but Maggie was already tugging his hand. "You have to see the piano. Come on." Maggie let him. Anna began, but Daniel raised a hand gently. "It is okay," he said. She stepped aside as her daughter led him into the small hall behind the sanctuary. The piano stood in the corner, a little weathered keys slightly off tune. Maggie beamed. "Can you play Mommy Sings, but she plays funny." Daniel hesitated, then slowly sat on the bench. He touched the keys like they were fragile, played a soft note, then another, then Silent Night. The room held its breath. Anna watched from the doorway. His back was straight, his hands careful, but it was his face that changed. For a moment the grief fell away, and all that remained was gentleness. When he finished, Maggie clapped softly. "That was perfect," she whispered. "You made the piano sound happy." Daniel looked at her and smiled, truly smiled for the first time in what felt like years. Anna caught that smile, and something in her shifted just a little. Not every stranger was a threat. Some carried sadness like others carried stories. And maybe, just maybe, this one had a story worth hearing. Daniel came back the next week, and the one after that. He never said why, and he never stayed long. He would arrive just after the children's choir began practicing, always lingering near the backhands in his coat pockets, eyes fixed on the piano. Anna noticed. At first she thought it was curiosity, then politeness, then maybe habit. But Daniel never disrupted. He simply listened. Sometimes he would smile when Maggie sang too loud, or when a shy boy hit the wrong note and the group dissolved into laughter. And sometimes he would close his eyes as if the music held something only he could hear. One afternoon Anna came early to find him already there. He was kneeling beside the old upright piano, in the corner, sleeves rolled, fingers working carefully at the side panel. She paused by the door. He had pulled the front board open, exposing a tangle of hammers and keys. With the focus of someone who had done this before, he adjusted the tension wires gently. She said nothing, just watched. After a few minutes, Daniel noticed her and looked up, blinking. "I hope you do not mind," he said. "Some of the lower keys were misaligned. I thought I could try to help." Anna tilted her head. "You tune pianos?" "Not professionally," he replied. "But I learned a long time ago." She walked closer. "Well, if you make it worse, we will just sing a cappella." Daniel smiled. "Deal." It was a soft exchange, uncomplicated, but it lingered with her. In the following days their conversations grew not in length, but in depth, about music, about children, about Christmas memories that were both precious and painful. Daniel never spoke of loss, never mentioned a wife or a daughter. But once, as he was watching Maggie sing, "O Come All Ye Faithful," he said quietly, "Someone used to sing this for me, every Christmas." Anna did not ask who. She only said, "It's one of my favorites too." And they left it there. Maggie grew more attached to him. She would run up with crayon drawings, proudly holding them up. "This is me, Mommy, and Daniel. See, we are singing together." Anna tried to smile through it. Sometimes she worried. Sometimes she did not know what to think. But Daniel never overstepped, never promised anything. He was just present, and that was enough for Maggie. One quiet Thursday afternoon, the children were slow to arrive for practice. Snow had started early. Inside the hall, Maggie tugged at Daniel's sleeve. "Can you teach me a song?" she asked, eyes wide. He looked over at Anna, who nodded once with a gentle smile. He sat at the piano. Maggie climbed onto the bench beside him, her feet swinging. "Okay," he said softly. "Let's try something simple." He played the first few notes of "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" slowly. Maggie followed her little hands, hesitating, then mimicking. "Wrong key. Try again. Right one. Again." "Yes," she squealed. "Mommy, look, he's teaching me." Anna turned from where she was setting up music sheets. The sight stopped her. Maggie's face was glowing, cheeks pink with excitement. Her small hands danced on the keys. And Daniel, he was smiling. Truly smiling. Not politely, not wistfully, but fully, like someone remembering how. And Anna laughed a small, surprised laugh that bubbled out without permission. Daniel turned to her. Their eyes met. Anna blinked. That smile. There was something in it, something familiar. Not to her personally, but to life, to love. It was the kind of smile a man once gave a woman when he was brave enough to believe again. Daniel looked away first, back to Maggie, but Anna kept watching. Not every man who walks in from the cold carries danger. Some carry a story, and sometimes even an old piano can tell it for them. Whispers had begun to stir in the town. It was a small place. News moved quickly, even when it was only made of sideways glances and coffee shop gossip. And lately people had been whispering about the man with the quiet eyes who showed up at the church every week. "He's not from here, is he? Drives a sleek black car, not the usual visitor, but have you seen how that little girl follows him around?" Anna heard the murmurs. She tried to ignore them, focused on the choir, the children, the music, but it was getting harder. The truth was, Daniel had become a part of their rhythm. Maggie lit up when he walked through the doors. He brought her coloring books, new sheet music once, even a pair of tiny gloves lined with fleece. He never crossed a line, never made promises. But sometimes his eyes lingered on Anna longer than they used to. Sometimes she caught herself looking back. That scared her more than anything. One evening after the children had left and snow began to whisper against the stained glass windows, Anna stood by the piano while Daniel adjusted a loose pedal. Maggie had fallen asleep on a pew with her head on a songbook. Anna looked over, then softly said, "She asks about you now." Daniel paused. Anna continued, "Not with words always. Sometimes she draws 3 people instead of 2. Sometimes she asks if you will be at dinner. She never had that before. Someone to wait for." Daniel sat back, his hands resting on his knees. "She's a special little girl." "She is," Anna said gently, her voice dipping, "which is why I have to protect her even from things that feel good." Daniel turned his gaze to her. "What are you trying to say?" Anna took a breath. "I know you mean well. I do not think you are dangerous. I know Maggie adores you, and I like having you around too, but I cannot let her believe she finally has a father figure only to have that taken away again." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I have not made her promises." "You do not have to," Anna said. "You show up. You smile. You teach. You care. That is enough for a 5-year-old to believe." He looked at the floor, then back at her. "Do you think I would walk away from her?" Anna hesitated, then quietly replied, "I think people who have been hurt often do not stay where they could get hurt again." Her voice trembled slightly. "I think those who have lost someone are often too scared to love what they might lose next." The words hung in the air like breath in winter. Daniel did not argue. He just stood, slowly looked down at Maggie's sleeping form, and nodded once. Then he left. The next rehearsal came, and Daniel did not, nor the next, nor the one after. Maggie waited by the door, her feet swinging from the pew. Anna tried to explain gently. "He must be busy, honey. Maybe he had to go out of town." But Maggie stopped asking after a while. Instead, she drew. One evening, Anna found her at the kitchen table with crayons scattered everywhere. "Is that for your class?" Anna asked, peeking at the page. Maggie nodded solemnly. "It is our family." Anna's heart caught. The drawing showed 3 people, a little girl in a red dress, a woman with yellow hair, and a man with brown shoes and a kind smile. But his face was just an outline blank. Maggie had not colored it in. "Why did you leave his face empty?" Anna asked softly. Maggie whispered, "Because I do not know if he is coming back." Anna sat down beside her, gathered her daughter into her arms. She did not cry, but something inside her did, because even the gentlest goodbyes leave the deepest echoes. The church hall echoed with silence. Anna stood at the foot of the small stage, a crumpled letter in her hands. Her shoulders were stiff, her face unreadable, but her knuckles were white. The sponsor had pulled out. The note had been cold clinical. "We regret to inform you that unless the Christmas performance features a more commercially viable program, we will be unable to continue our financial support." She had read it twice, then again, but the words never changed. More commercially viable. They wanted pop songs, holiday jingles, Santa hats, and glittery dance numbers. Not hymns, not children's voices singing about peace and hope, not the reason she had started this choir in the first place. Anna sank into the front pew, the letter falling beside her. She had no backup plan, no second sponsor, and the performance was just 2 weeks away. The worst part was not the logistics, it was the heartbreak she would see in Maggie's eyes. In every child who had rehearsed their little hearts out, believing they were part of something real. She pressed her fingers to her temples and whispered, "I'm sorry." That evening, as snow began to whip against the stained glass windows, the doors of the church creaked open. Anna looked up sharply. Daniel stood there, dusting flakes from his coat. Her heart skipped, but she said nothing. He walked slowly down the aisle, stopping just a few feet away. "I heard," he said. Anna frowned. "How did you—" "I stopped by earlier. Maggie was the one who told me. She was crying." Anna's eyes filled, but she blinked fast. "I do not know what to tell them, Daniel. I told them this concert mattered, that their voices mattered." He was quiet for a moment, then stepped forward. "Then do not change a thing." Anna looked at him uncertain. "They're singing about something real," he said. "That's what makes it worth listening to. Do not let someone with a checkbook silence that." She almost smiled. "I wish it were that simple." Daniel reached into his coat and handed her a folded envelope. No strings, no conditions, just a gift. Anna unfolded it slowly. Her breath caught. It was a donation large enough to cover the entire concert, and then some signed only by a foundation name she did not recognize. She looked up sharply. "Daniel." He shook his head. "Do not ask." "Why would you, after everything?" "Because it is not about me," he said softly. "It never was. It is about them, about her." He nodded toward the stage where Maggie's tiny music folder still sat forgotten. Anna clutched the envelope, her voice trembling. "You came back." Daniel met her eyes. "I never really left." The next morning, the children rushed in early. Someone had told them the concert was back on. Maggie burst through the door, saw Daniel standing beside the piano, and ran full speed into his arms. "I knew you would come back," she cried, burying her face in his coat. "I knew it." Daniel knelt to her level, hugging her gently. "Hey, I missed you too." She looked up at him with wet eyes. "We can still sing." "You bet." Maggie held on to him tighter. "I prayed every night. I told God even if you did not come back for Mommy, maybe you would come back for me." Anna watched them, her hand covering her heart. This was why the concert mattered. Not for tradition, not for donors, but for a little girl who had seen a man walk out the door and had never stopped believing he would walk back in. And this time, he did. The news spread through the church faster than choir notes on rehearsal day. One of the older volunteers, Mr. Gentry, a retired accountant with a curious streak, had been organizing donor paperwork when he recognized a name on the foundation check, Lell Enterprises. A quick internet search confirmed it. Daniel Lell, CEO of one of the largest investment firms in the country. Estimated net worth hundreds of millions. Once featured on the cover of a business magazine and 2 years ago listed as the primary funder behind the scholarship program Anna had applied to and been rejected from. Anna stood in the side room of the church, her hands clenched around her phone, still staring at the article Mr. Gentry had shown her. He had been here all this time, smiling, helping, letting her believe he was just a kind stranger. She did not knock when she found him by the piano later that evening. "You're Daniel Lell," she stated. He looked up slowly, his expression unchanged. He had been expecting this. Anna's voice trembled. "You let me think you were someone else, that you just wandered in." "I never lied," he said gently. "But you never told the truth," she shot back. "You knew who I was. You saw my name. You read my application." Daniel stood. "I did." "Then why did you come back? Why here?" His jaw tightened. "Because I was running from a life that made me feel nothing, and then I heard a little girl sing." She stepped closer, pain in her eyes. "You could have told me." Daniel exhaled. "Would you have listened?" Silence. He turned toward the piano, his fingers brushing over the keys. "I turned down more than just your application, Anna," he said, his voice low. "I turned down my daughter's birthday the week before she died. I turned down every bedtime story my wife begged me to read. I turned down every little thing that mattered because I thought building an empire would protect me from loss." He looked at her, then his eyes raw. "But loss found me anyway." Anna said nothing. Her chest tightened. "I came here because I remembered this church," he continued. "My wife used to sing here. We came once before we were married. She said the acoustics were magical." He laughed once bitterly. "I never noticed." Anna's voice was barely above a whisper. "And your daughter?" Daniel closed his eyes. "Her name was Lily. She was 6. She loved snow angels and hated broccoli. She thought pianos could talk if you played them just right." Anna's throat closed. "I lost them both," Daniel said. "In one breath, in one moment." Tears blurred Anna's vision. She turned away, walking into the empty rehearsal room. She sat at the edge of the risers where the children usually stood, her arms around herself, trying not to fall apart. She failed. The tears came quietly. She did not hear the footsteps, only felt something soft pressed into her hands, a small embroidered cloth. Family means forever. Maggie's uneven stitches, her careful little heart sewn into every thread. Anna looked up. Daniel was sitting beside her, not speaking, not fixing, just sitting. And in the quiet, something heavier than anger lifted, because he was not a perfect man, but he was finally telling the truth. And that was the beginning of something real. Snow fell like powdered sugar over the chapel's roof that Christmas Eve. Inside, the little church glowed. Every pew was filled. Candles flickered in windows, casting soft halos across the old wood beams. The stage was wrapped in evergreen garlands, strung with warm white lights. Anna stood near the piano, scanning the crowd. It was more than she had expected, more than she had dared to hope. Behind her, the children whispered excitedly in their costumes, angels with handmade wings, shepherds in bathrobes, tiny stars and snowflakes stitched by devoted parents. Maggie clutched her songbook to her chest, her eyes wide. She was the final act, the solo. Anna knelt beside her, tucking a loose curl behind her daughter's ear. "You do not have to be perfect," she whispered. "Just be you." Maggie nodded, but bit her lip. Her hands trembled. The concert began with laughter and wonder. Tiny voices sang, "Hark the herald angels sing," then "Away in a Manger." Parents leaned forward in the pews, phones in hand, tears already threatening. Daniel stood near the side of the stage, half hidden behind a pillar. He had not planned to come, but his heart had made the decision for him. He watched Anna move through the space with quiet grace, guiding the children, smiling gently, checking lights and mics. She looked radiant in the soft gold dress Maggie had chosen for her. And when Maggie stepped forward for her solo, Daniel's breath caught. She was so small on that stage in her red velvet dress with a white ribbon in her hair. Her hands still shaking, her eyes searched the crowd. At the side of the stage, Daniel stepped forward. She saw him, and her entire face changed. He gave her a little nod and mouthed, "Just sing for Mommy. I'll be right here." Maggie took a breath, then began, "You are my sunshine." Her voice wavered on the first line, but steadied, pure and heartfelt. Each word landed like a snowflake melting into the silence of the room. Daniel closed his eyes, and memories flooded in his daughter's voice, her laugh, her tiny hand in his. And now here was Maggie carrying a song through the same halls his wife once sang in. Anna watched from behind the piano, tears streaking down her cheeks. The church was completely still. Not a cough, not a whisper, only that small, brave voice. "Please, don't take my sunshine away." When the final note faded, the room held its breath. Then came the applause, thunderous, raw, uncontainable. Some parents stood, others wiped their eyes. Anna pressed a hand to her mouth. Maggie looked around, overwhelmed. Then she looked toward Daniel, and he smiled, then stepped onto the stage. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Anna blinked, confused. "Daniel?" He walked slowly across the platform, every step quiet, deliberate. When he reached Maggie, he gently took her hand and turned her to face the audience. Then he knelt, and a small box appeared in his hand. Anna's heart stopped. Daniel looked directly at her. "I lost everything once," he said, his voice clear and steady. "I thought grief would be the end of me. I closed every door, pushed away everyone who tried to help." He turned to Maggie, still holding her hand. "But this little girl opened a door I never knew still existed." He looked back at Anna, his eyes shimmering. "You helped me find light again. Music, family, faith." The church held its breath. "Anna, will you let me stay this time? As your family?" Anna stepped forward slowly, her hands trembling, her lips parted in shock. Then she smiled through her tears. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." Maggie jumped up and down. "Does that mean I have a daddy now?" Laughter and applause erupted again. Daniel rose, embraced Anna and Maggie together, holding them close. Outside, snow kept falling, but inside the church, the light had never been warmer. Snowflakes drifted gently outside the stained glass windows of the little church, painting the world in soft white once again. Inside, the air hummed with laughter, the shuffle of boots and the jingling of tiny bells sewn into costumes. It was the winter choir celebration, an annual tradition now filled with more warmth than ever before. At the front, Anna stood beside the piano, her golden hair pinned back with a satin ribbon. Her hands fluttered as she directed a group of giggling children into position. She wore a simple cream dress, but it was the quiet glow in her eyes that made her look radiant. "Places, everyone," she called, gently smiling as the last snow angel took her mark. From the back of the church, a small voice called out with joy, "Daddy, come sit with me." Daniel turned, grinning. Maggie ran down the aisle in a swirl of white tulle, her curls bouncing, cheeks flushed with excitement. Her silver shoes sparkled beneath the hem of her dress as she reached him and tugged on his hand. "Come on," she said. "It's starting." He scooped her up easily, settling into the second pew right in the middle. In his hand was a folded piece of paper sheet music, yellowed at the edges but carefully preserved. The title at the top was handwritten Lily's Song. He had written it for his daughter years ago, but he had never been able to finish it. Until now. The music began. Tiny voices filled the air again, echoing joy and hope into every corner of the church. Daniel watched Anna from his seat as she guided the choir with gentle strength, her eyes flicking now and then to Maggie, who stood proudly in the front row, swaying with the beat. Maggie waved at him mid-song. He waved back. The music shifted into the final number. Anna turned to the audience, her voice soft and sure. This next piece was written by someone many of you know. It is a song about loss, but also about the light that follows. She met Daniel's eyes, and about how love always finds its way home. Daniel stood slowly, walked to the front, and took his place at the piano. Anna moved beside him. Maggie tiptoed to stand between them, and for the first time they played it together, Lily's Song. A melody that spoke of memories and healing of voices lost and found, of the kind of love that leaves room for more. The last note faded into the quiet. The church was still. Then slowly the crowd rose in a standing ovation, not for the performance, but for the journey. Afterward, the three of them stood outside beneath the giant Christmas tree the town had decorated earlier that week. Lights twinkled in every color. Maggie looked up, her eyes wide. "It looks like magic." Anna pulled her close. "It is, sweetheart." Daniel wrapped his arms around both of them, smiling. He had once believed he was too broken to ever belong anywhere again. But now he stood beneath winter stars, holding his wife and daughter close. There were still missing pieces, still scars that would never fade. But in that moment, bathed in light and laughter, it felt as if no darkness had ever touched them. Family was not just who you were born with. Family was who stayed, who believed, who came back forever. If this story touched your heart, let it be a quiet reminder. Even after the darkest winters, love can still bloom again. Daniel, Anna, and little Maggie showed us that healing does not come all at once, but through music, kindness, and the courage to open your heart one more time. Because sometimes, family is not who you expect. Sometimes, it finds you right when you need it most. At Soul-Stirring Stories, we share true and powerful tales that remind you of what really matters: connection, compassion, and second chances. If this story moved you, we invite you to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that might speak to your soul. Thank you for listening, and remember, somewhere someone is still waiting to be loved back to life.